Huh? Could it be? I was checking my phone at the OB-GYN clinic when someone suddenly spoke to me. I looked up and there was my husband's colleague, whom I had met before. Like me, she happily patted her big belly and said, "You're having your second child already. Seeing your belly, I wonder if our due dates are the same." Second child? I admire you for being so quick. Your older child is only about 6 months old, right? I was confused because I didn't understand what she meant. Truth be told, this child I'm pregnant with is indeed my first. Well, this is only my first. Her expression froze when I replied. It felt odd. I immediately questioned her about it. What she revealed afterwards was an unexpected truth. My name is Erica Adams, and I'm 28 years old. I work as an apparel salesperson in a department store. My husband, Christopher, and I have been married for only half a year. We met not at work, but at what you might call a blind date. Christopher works for a typical average company, and his income and benefits are about average too. It's a little tough to live on his income alone, but I also work full-time, so that's not an issue. I would like to have children someday, but if I were to give birth, I would have to take time off work, even if I didn't want to. To be prepared for whenever that time comes, I have been diligently saving money in my daily life. On the other hand, my husband Christopher isn't that cooperative. And whenever I try to save money by making boxed lunches, he flat out refuses.
Huh? Boxed lunches? I can go to different restaurants with everyone from the office for lunch, you know?
But didn't we agree to save money together? To do that, we have to start with what we can.
It's fine to save money, but where to cut back depends on individual values, right? I want to go out to eat with everyone for lunch.
So, Christopher, where do you plan to cut back?
Huh? Well, various things. I'll do my best in my own way, so isn't that good enough?
Huh. Okay. Even though we've only been married for half a year, this is the state of our relationship. Although we got married because we loved each other, the discrepancy in our values was bothering me. And what's more, even though a year has passed since we got married, we still don't have any children. It's not that I didn't want them. I simply thought it wasn't the right time to have children yet. Moreover, over these past 6 months, my husband has been spending money as he pleases without particularly focusing on saving. He doesn't hesitate to spend money on lunch expenses, gaming purchases, or sneakers he desires. His monthly income isn't particularly high, so he ends up spending almost all of it within a month. From the beginning of our marriage, we've been contributing $1,000 each per month towards living expenses. At some point, my husband started saying,
"I like to reduce it, even if it's just by a little."
Just recently, he made such a request to me.
"Sorry, Erica. Can you reduce my share of this month's living expenses a bit?"
Huh? Why? Didn't we already cut it by $100 last month?
Yeah, but you see, things have been a bit, tough.
Tough? That's why I suggested it, didn't I? I thought it'd be better to make boxed lunches to save even a little money.
That's not what I meant. Anyway, just reduce it by $100, okay?
Okay, but make sure to manage it properly next month. Looking back, I feel like my husband's been coming home later and later over this past half year. There have been more days when he's had to work on weekends, leaving the house empty. Despite overtime clearly increasing, why is it that our living expenses aren't enough? We must be spending it on something, but whenever I ask, he just evades the question. I really need to do something about this situation, I thought one day, and then it was announced that there would be a barbecue at my husband's company. It was mentioned that employees' families could also attend, so when my husband invited me, I decided to join. While his company has a high proportion of male employees, it's not awkward at all. As I sipped tea on the sidelines, a stranger approached me. Nice to meet you. You're Miss Adams, right?
Yes, that's right. Are you by any chance my husband's colleague?
I'm Lisa Kerr, and I work in the same department. I heard you and I are the same age, so I naturally felt a sense of closeness.
Is that so? America Adams. My husband always speaks highly of you.
Oh, that's great to hear. I hardly have anyone of the same age around. Indeed, there seems to be a lot of younger new hires and older individuals, and there aren't many people around our age, right?
Most of the women I spoke with who looked young were temporary workers. The older women, on the other hand, are mostly part-timers. There are probably really few full-time female employees. That is probably why someone as close in age as I am was so valuable to Lisa. We had a lively conversation, and I was able to forget about the usual frustrations with my husband and enjoy a good time after a long time. When I got home, I approached my husband.
Christopher, thanks for inviting me today. It was so much fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. You seemed to be chatting happily with Lisa, huh?
Oh yeah, Lisa is really nice and we hit it off.
Is that so? Lisa is good at her job and probably the most powerful female employee.
Wow, she must be really impressive. She does seem like someone who could handle the job well.
And her memory is amazing too. She remembers almost every company we've dealt with and what she's been in charge of.
In my opinion, Lisa doesn't seem like the type to be deeply engrossed in her work, despite her outward appearance. It might be rude to say, but this just proves that appearances can be deceiving. I can't help but admire someone who not only has such a glamorous appearance, but also excels at work and has a good memory. Inspired by her, I began to immerse myself in work from the next day onwards. I tried to do everything myself and support others as well. However, on the other hand, the misunderstandings with my husband grew. My company hardly ever has overtime, no matter how busy it gets. But lately, I feel like my husband's been coming home even later than before. Up until now, he used to come home by 10 p.m. at the latest, but recently it's become normal for him to return after midnight. With more overtime on weekends as well, I decided to ask about the reason for this one day. Hey, Christopher, lately you've been coming home really late. Is work that busy?
Huh? Yeah. There are a lot of new tasks and stuff starting up.
But still, past midnight? Isn't that way too late? Is that really okay with the company?
It's fine, really. It's just for now, and it's not like this all the time. Anyway, Erica, there's nothing for you to worry about.
Well, if you say so. His vague responses left me feeling uneasy, but pressing him now probably won't get me the answers I want. For now, I decided to observe his behavior a little longer. However, even after 6 months, my husband's overtime remained unchanged, and the opportunities for us to meet as a couple had also become fewer. We no longer went on dates like we used to on weekends, and I found myself going out alone more often. On this particular day, since my husband was working on a weekend, I went out alone. I took a train in the opposite direction of my usual route and decided to visit the newly opened shopping mall. Being freshly opened, it was incredibly crowded. As I strolled around looking at various shops, I heard a familiar voice from behind.
Hey, over here. Come this way.
It was unmistakably my husband's voice. I instinctively turned around, but with so many people around, I couldn't quite catch sight of my husband. Though I caught a glimpse of what seemed to be his figure, I lost sight of him amidst the crowd. What's going on? That was definitely Christopher's voice just now. If it wasn't him, who called out to me? Then who? That evening, I decided to wait for my husband to return home and ask him about it. As soon as he arrived home after 11 p.m., I broached the project. Hey, Christopher, where were you today?
Huh? What are you talking about? It's a holiday, so obviously I was at work, right?
I went to the newly opened shopping mall and heard your voice, Christopher.
Huh? The newly opened shopping mall in the neighboring city?
You knew about it?
Well, it was rumored, but I was at work, so I didn't go to a place like that.
My husband was clearly flustered, insisting on his weekend work schedule, considering his behavior was clearly different from usual. I became convinced Christopher was lying. Since then, I began to closely monitor his actions. Just then, I began to feel nauseous all the time. Why am I suddenly feeling like this? Did I eat something weird? The feeling of nausea, accompanied by physical discomfort, lasted for about a week. Summoning my courage to go to the hospital, I was shocked to find out I was pregnant. Due to our concerns about our savings, we had been meticulous about contraception. But as I experienced pregnancy firsthand, my anxiety gradually faded, replaced by a feeling of happiness. When I told my husband about the pregnancy, he was overjoyed.
Huh? Pregnant? Seriously?
But there seemed to be a hint of tension in his expression. Apparently, I had a predisposition to severe morning sickness. I had intended to keep a close eye on my husband's suspicious behavior, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. 6 months later, I safely entered the stable period of my pregnancy, and my morning sickness finally began to ease. Until now, the severity of my morning sickness had required my husband to accompany me to the hospital, but that was no longer necessary. I was able to go to the OB-GYN by myself, and while waiting to see the doctor at the reception desk, I routinely browsed baby products on my smartphone. It was at this time that I was suddenly approached at the hospital. Huh? Could it be? When I looked up, there was the familiar figure of my husband's colleague, Lisa. She joyfully stroked her belly, which was about as big as mine, and said, "You're having your second child already. Seeing your belly, I wonder if our due dates are the same." Lisa? It's quite challenging to be pregnant with a second child when the first one is still small, isn't it? And by the way, were you pregnant with your first child during the barbecue we had before?
Second child?
You're admirable for being so quick. Isn't your older child about 6 months old?
I was confused as to what Lisa meant. Truth be told, this child I'm pregnant with is indeed my first. With a mix of confusion and fear, I cautiously spoke up.
Lisa, this child is actually my first. Huh? Your first? This child?
Yes, this child is my first. As I answered, her expression froze. Something felt off. Trusting my instincts, I immediately confronted her. Hey, Lisa, why did you think this child was my second?
Well, that's...
Tell me, I can't ignore this.
Erica,
She looked awkward throughout, avoiding eye contact. But then, as if she had made up her mind, she looked at me and slowly spoke.
Actually, I saw him at the park a little while ago. Christopher was walking around holding a small child.
Huh? Christopher was?
The child didn't seem able to walk alone yet, and size-wise, it seemed like it had been about 6 months since birth. I didn't see you around, so I just assumed Christopher was taking a walk alone.
Did you hear this from my husband?
At that time, I only caught a glimpse from the car, and I was suffering from severe morning sickness, so I had already quit my job. I couldn't inquire further about the truth. I'm sorry for saying weird things.
No. Thank you for telling me. Lisa left with an indescribable look on her face. Meanwhile, I was filled with boiling anger. I see. So that's what happened. The overtime increased because he was cheating, right? Moreover, he has a child with the other person. I absolutely can't forgive this. After finishing the checkup, I approached my husband, who was watching TV in the living room. Without delay, I immediately confronted him after he greeted me with, "Welcome home." Hey, Christopher, I ran into Lisa at the hospital earlier. Huh? Lisa? She's been having terrible morning sickness and quit. I've been worried about her. I heard something from Lisa. She told me you're having your second child already. Huh? Christopher? You know something, right? Christopher's face drained of color, and I sensed his agitation. He began to stammer desperately, his eyes shifting. What are you talking about? A second child? Maybe Lisa just got the wrong idea. Haha. Right, that's what I thought too. But she saw you herself. You holding the baby. That's impossible. I don't have a kid. I found it strange. Your overtime hasn't increased your salary, and you've been working weekends more often. Lisa mentioned it. There's no weekend work at his company, she said. Yes, I was listening to another important story from Lisa. It was about overtime and working on weekends. According to her, my husband's company only does overtime until 8 p.m. at the latest. She said there had never been any weekend work. So no matter how much overtime he does, it's strange for my husband to come home after midnight. Even on the days he said he was working weekends, he was actually going somewhere else, not to the office. Hey, where were you and what were you doing? When I questioned my husband, he started trembling uncontrollably. Perhaps realizing he couldn't keep hiding, he slowly opened his mouth while looking down. At her place. Her? How long have you been dating her? Well, she's actually my ex-girlfriend. I got her pregnant, so I've been visiting her regularly. Your ex-girlfriend? So what about the child? Is it yours? Yes. I felt alternating waves of anger, frustration, and disbelief at myself for choosing such a pathetic man. I'm willing to break up. Please, forgive me. My husband tried to dismiss everything with such words, but I shouted at him. Don't you dare joke about this. What do you think you're doing to our child? You talk about breaking up so casually, but because of you, the child from your affair won't have a father. And yet you're all about self-preservation. You're too selfish. No, it's not like that. I just want to prioritize you, Erica. It was just a momentary lapse with my ex-girlfriend. It just happened in the heat of the moment. What? It's disgusting to hear that now. After you've been doing whatever you wanted all this time, now you're trying to act like a saint? I refuse to let a jerk like you become the father of this child. It's utterly shameless of you to impregnate both me and your ex-girlfriend at the same time. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Please forgive me. Shut up, you scumbag. Don't ever come near me again. Rot in hell, you piece of garbage. Sorry, but you'll be paying alimony and child support. Got it? Be prepared for that, okay? My words left Christopher crestfallen. Ignoring him, I packed my things and left for good. Without a word, he watched me leave. Afterwards, with the help of my parents and in-laws, I divorced Christopher. A few days later, I hired a lawyer and sued both him and his mistress for damages. I made sure to demand child support from him for our unborn child. For him, already struggling financially, this was a significant blow. He resorted to borrowing money to cover the expenses. Eventually, news of his affair leaked to his company, resulting in his transfer to a subsidiary, another reason due to anger from the higher-ups. Now abandoned by his mistress as well, he works tirelessly to pay child support to me. On my end, I'm approaching my due date. It's a scary thought as it's my first time, but the anticipation of meeting my child soon brings a smile to my face. The absence of a father may cause this child to grieve in the future, but I will protect this child because I am his mother. We'll meet soon. Just wait for me. With these words, I gently pat my swollen belly. As long as I have this child, everything will be all right. I vowed to ensure the happiness of both me and my child.